So we've done a basic stretch with ABE already, but let's check out dynamic background extraction on the image and see if we can get something that's better. Then we'll go back to automatic background extraction and compare the two. So let's go back into our file here and expand that back up. And let's see what we're going to open up. You'll notice dynamic crops up here. Apologies if we had some vignetting or some artifacts out here that we wanted to get rid of. We could crop at this point, but this is looking pretty decent right now. We might crop in a little bit later, but for now, let's leave it be. So I've got the module here, DBE. You can also go up to Process, All Process, and Dynamic Background Extraction. Either way will work. And here's our window. So let's go back to our notes. And as you can see here, ABE works well for clusters, and that is very true from my experience. Everything else, DBE can do a better job. It just takes more manual input. So under model parameters, my start point is 750 for tolerance. So we have no samples selected, but we're going to keep this one up, and I'll show you why later. So under model parameters, the first one here, here's our tolerance. I want to update that to 0.75. And then we can drop that down. We don't touch this one for now. Again, these are all just start points for me. Sample generation. Come back over here. So radius is 20 and sample rate is 0.4. Now if I did let me do the sample weight first. So 0.4. Now if I just did left it at default of 5 and we did a generate, you might not be able to see it on the video, but there are little crosses here, X's. So, and here is that selected sample. So let's zoom in. And right here is a sample. Look at how small that box is. So if I zoom back out, and I go to a radius of 20, and I resize all. Now there's actually a box that encompasses that X. And if we zoom in, you can see the box got bigger. And like I said, this is a starting point. We can change this as we need to. We can play with these parameters, but for most things thus far, which has been a small sampling of the images, mind you, these seem to work pretty well for most of the images from a starting point. So especially the 20 on the radius, so that we can get in there and look at the background. So at this point, I like to zoom in so that I have 2 or 3 rows of points. And let's move, let's go with 3. Okay. So at this point, this is where the manual part comes in, because we have to look at every point. So I like to go row by row here And let's look at this one. Now if you look in, this is this one down here in the lower right, or excuse me, lower left. And if you look at the sample here, you'll see this black spot, both on the edge and upper middle. Those are actually stars. So we want to actually move this away because we don't want to select any stars. So all you do is come back over here to the box and we move it around until we get a mostly clear area, and that looks pretty good right there. And we do this for every point that it auto-generated. Now, if I wanted to, I could come down here, so we're going to look over here in the lower left, and it looks like a nice dark spot right here in between these three stars. We can just click on that and put in our own little mark. The more marks you have, the better it's going to have, better sampling it's going to have for the background, and then it'll be able to get that image the way we want it. But it's not required to do so. It's just if you want to take the extra effort to do that. Now clearly with the amount of images, or excuse me, stars in this image, it's going to be harder to find those points. But you know, it can be done. The other thing to note here, we're not doing a galaxy, but let's say we had the Andromeda galaxy in here. Any points that fell within the target structure, so the arms of the galaxy, anything of that nature, we would want to move. So if this point was in the center of that galaxy, we would want to move it over or delete it to a point where we don't have any structure in the galaxy itself or the nebulosity or anything like that. We want these points to be on the background, the black points. So let's scroll back down and let me go through this real quick. Well, not real quick, but you know what I mean. Okay, so now I'm done going through all the predefined or the generated points. I might want to put a couple more in here, but you'll notice I left 2 points alone so that I could demonstrate something. So if you zoom in here, we go up, you notice this graininess at the top. Okay, now this is artifacts due to the stacking because there just weren't as many images. You know, it's due to that registration and stacking. So if you remember when we opened up that light file, there was that rejection low, rejection high, and on that rejection low there was white banding along the top and the side, the right side. And this is part of that. You know, it's all because of that drift from frame to frame and the dithering and everything. So this is where, now that I look at it, I would probably crop this down with dynamic crop to bring that upper point somewhere around this bright star right here. But we can leave it for now. What we don't want is we don't want a reference point in this area, because look at how crazy that sample looks. And if you come over here to like this point, and look how bright that looks. And hopefully in the posted video, you can actually see this up here, this graininess. We don't want to include any of that in our calculations here. So, you know, I've moved it over here. That's a good reference point. And then we have another one here. You can see this corner is real funky. You know, some black points there. Let me go back down to this point over here. Where was that? This one here. And not as bad as the top, but you can just barely see, at least I can barely see some of that graininess here. So we want to pull that off the side. And let's put that up here. And, you know, do we want to keep the stuff down along the bottom edge too? It doesn't look as bad as the top and the right side, so we're going to leave those be. Alright, let's zoom back out. At this point, we can consider our points verified. And let's go down here to correction. Now this is key. Must hit subtraction. Okay. If you just do none, you're going to end up with a single image that has what it's pulling away. But we want a second image that has everything subtracted from that. So let's go ahead and apply this and see what we get. Alright, let's see what let's do a quick stretch, minimize that. So this is what it pulled out. Now we zoom in, it's all the red cast on there, right? So we can get rid of that. This is the nice thing about renaming your file to your target. In some of these modules, it will postfix it with, in this case, DBE. You know, if I had done an automatic background extraction, this would be ABE. But let's do a stretch on it and see what we get. And that actually looks pretty decent. So let me undo that. And save this file. And as you can see, it's already got the DBE. Now if you notice, I'm saving after every step. Okay, this allows us to go back at any point. So let's say we get down here to denoise and it draws something out that we don't like. Well, if you notice, denoise is right here, and let's say it's background neutralization that caused the problem that later became evident in denoise. We can go back to this image in DBE, and we don't, or we could go to background noise, or what have you, and we don't have to go all the way back to the original image and then redo this step and redo that step and so on and so forth. But we're going to minimize that. But for now, I think we're going to call DBE good. Yeah, we can leave that be. Let's move that up here. And let's take a look at ABE again. Except this time a little bit more explanation. So the box size, let's go to 8. The default of 5 works as well. The rest of these, it just uses default. Doesn't seem to impact it too much. At least nothing noticeable that I've seen. And then again, we want subtraction and a simple drag and drop. And again, there's our background, so let's stretch that. And the right cast is gone. Let's zoom in onto the... No, that's just my eyes playing tricks on me. Okay. And let's expand this up. And stretch that. Looks kind of similar. Let's get rid of that. Let's put it over it. And so that's with the DBE, and that's with ABE. DBE, ABE. Background's a little darker. Stars are a little bit whiter. This has more of a orangish cast to it. I'm not sure which one I want, so let's save this one. And yep, already renamed it to ABE. So let's save that. And let's go OK. But you know what? I'm thinking I might want to stick with, because there's just something about it that pops a little bit more for me. I don't know what it is. The DBE just pops a little bit more for me. And by pops, I mean it just hits my eye a little harder. This does look a little cleaner. Let's zoom in here. We got some noise. The background's pretty black. If we zoom in here to roughly the same size, a lot more noise. Yeah, it just didn't seem to draw out the blacks as much. That's a good question. You know, this is one of those ones where we would go through the rest of the workflow, use the one from this one, and use the one from this one, and see which one works better. But for now, I think I'm going to stick with the DBE. So I'm going to close this one. Now at this point, we could close this, but I'm just going to minimize it for now and move it up here. And we'll pop this one over here. And yep. And what's our next part of the workflow? Color calibration. So let's unstretch this just so we get a baseline.